Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about the crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lethal Weapon as well as the latest episode of Blindspot. Like always, if you look in the description down below, I include the time slots on when I start talking about each of the respective shows that I'm talking about. So if I end up talking about something that you might not care about, look in the description and skip to the time of stuff that you do care about. So first thing I'm going to talk about is Lethal Weapons episode this week. So a very interesting opening to the episode where we had that guy hanging out with, I assume, his wife and his child. Well, definitely his child, but I don't know. Maybe that's his new girlfriend. Well, I say maybe wife. And it's like, oh, some Asian dude's kind of like, hey, like, how are you going to rectify this problem? He's like, oh, I'm going to rectify it by this. And pulls out the gun, shoots him in the head, and it's just like, drops the body in the middle of his hotel room and gets his son's, like, stuff so he can go swimming and everything. It's kind of interesting because it's kind of like, oh, I'm a really bad guy, but let me go enjoy some time with my son. I mean, it is sad when you find out what he did to that dude by, like, stuffing his body in a bag to the point, like, breaking his legs just to fit him into the bag and everything. Because you end up finding out this is all about, they're called peso brokers. So it's like a very extensive thing where it's like cartels. Essentially, it's a long type of thing of just kind of a cycle of drugs and money type of situation, which involves people making toys and stuff like that. It's just a long, extensive thing. And Riggs and Murtaugh find themselves kind of mixed up in this. And not only them, but they also end up bumping heads with a DEA agent named Palmer, which I love the interactions this episode between them and them. It's just kind of like the fact that she's like, oh, so you think there's drugs in all these bunnies? Huh? It cuts off its head and it's like, oh, let's check all of them. And then Riggs is kind of like, oh, does he see? Oh, see how much a sociopath she is up there just cutting rabbits' heads off like that? Like, who does that? And then saying like, okay, so in this case, we'll make you the Mexican cartel. I don't want to be the Mexican cartel. I just feel like that's poor casting on your part. And then the fact is that this man is like, you see the captain here, he's trying to be so humble, waiting, asking for an explanation of what peso, I don't know why I said peso brokers are. And he's like, well, I'm sitting here, I could look it up, for myself and everything. Because essentially, in the middle of this is this family called, I think they're the Han family. Essentially, they're a family. They were basically making the stuffed animals because they were kind of like part of the whole cycle of the whole peso broker situation. And basically, she had picked them up, was going, trying to get some information out of them, and like a hitman kind of shows up. Riggs rams his car into hers, and she's like, what the hell are you doing? You hit me. And he's like, duck, gun. And she's like, what? And the guy starts shooting. Riggs floors the car, pushing near his back while Roger's on the other side shooting. I was just like, that was just sick. And then she's like, oh, is everyone okay? She's like, yeah. And he kind of is close to her and he kind of back. So he's like, okay, that's good. And then she's like, okay, what's up with that? He's kind of wild and crazy like that, ramming his car into my car like that. And then Roger's like, yeah, he does that sometimes. But it's like, he saved my life too. He's like, yeah, he does that sometimes too. Because a big part of this episode is the fact is that Riggs is having a hard time because he's having dreams about Miranda more and more, and they're constant dreams of her being like, join me. And he talks to the doc about it, and she's like, how often do you want to join her? He's like, sometimes. She's like, is it just sometimes? It's like, okay, more often than not, I do. And then it's like every day, it's like, it gets essentially harder and harder because it's like, it'd be so much easier just to be with her, and every day living without her is just that much harder. I mean, it ends up turning into a thing later on in the episode where it's kind of like, the doc is kind of like, because, there's a whole saying of like, oh, time heals all wounds. She basically is like, that's bull. And he's like, really? He's like, yeah, time sucks. Time makes you kind of have to live with everything, Time is a punishment. Like, you get more time stuck with dealing with what's inside of your head and everything. I mean, we even punish people with time, like how much time you spend in jail. And that's something I would have never thought about that. It put it into an interesting perspective because you do lock criminals up for a period of time. And it's like time can be, it's not always a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It's also because it's like people have not been through what you've been through. The only people who say stuff like, oh, time heals all wounds are people who've never really been in a situation like Riggs where his world came crashing down around him. And to me, the moment he started acting weird around Agent Palmer. I was kind of like, wait, is there possibly something there? Because early in the episode when they were talking to that lady, like apparently that the sand that they found on the victims, on the victim in general was like from a specific type of sand. I forgot. Was it like Hawaiian sand? It was something I can't remember. I know I'm a complete jerk for that, but I don't remember. But basically, a specific sand that you wouldn't find in LA. And apparently, some dude who, like, it was where I guess where the hotels were. Essentially, he imported sand. It's like, and who the hell does that? Who imports sand out of anything? Just sand. It's like you're in LA. There's tons of other sand you could gather up and push there, but it's like, nah, I'm gonna import sand, but. You do you, I guess. And the lady there was kind of hitting on Riggs, not really hitting on him. It's just like, oh, could you want a drink or anything? He's like, no, I'm good. And she's smiling at him the entire time. And Roger's like, hey, I would like to. Oh, she's completely ignoring me. And it's like, oh, you really, he kind of brings it up. It's like, have you ever thought about kind of getting back in the saddle and whatnot? I mean, he quickly drops it later on and he kind of apologized for it. He's like, I'll just chalk that up to another thing. Because it's like, he's like, because even Roger realizes it's not the easiest thing to kind of, after being what he's been through, it's not going to be the easiest thing to be like, oh yeah, you should jump back in the saddle. You don't worry, you should put yourself back out there. But it's coming from a caring place because he sees what's up with Riggs. Because I mean, this whole situation makes it Riggs can't even sleep. Like halfway through his therapy sessions, he kept nodding off multiple times, and so it just became a little too much. And it's just like you see where Roger was coming from. But that kind of the moment I was like, oh, is there something there? I mean, especially because they were granted, she was like that, very no, I'm gonna take over this case. I don't want you cowboys essentially kind of butting into my case and everything. And there was even that moment later in an episode when she was pretending to be his wife and everything and grabbing on him, touching him, holding him and just saying all these things. And it made him very uncomfortable. And she's she even said it to Roger being like, man, he got, Roger brought it up. It's yeah, I think the reason why he was acting like that, the reason why the moment they were done, he kind of ran off. She was kind of he was like, yeah, I think he kind of caught him off guard. He kind of made him a little uncomfortable. She's like, really? The guy that just kind of goes in guns blazing got uncomfortable? He's like, yeah. I guess, it took us, she's like, I guess it takes, it took a special type of woman I'd like to meet the woman that was able to, turn him, kind of tame that wild stallion in a sense. Just, he's very off the wall, is crazy, but for there to be something that kind of catches him off guard and makes him uncomfortable, but then she was kind of Roger explains yeah, I heard that she was kind of something special, and then it just sunk in. Palmer's like, oh, I know what, she kind of figured out what happened from there. I mean, really kind of balancing the lightheartedness with the kind of obviously, more obviously sad parts of the episode. It's how they found the money in the first place. That time they busted into the shop or whatever, and they're and then Roger's like, okay, I thought we were going to come here with a warrant and everything. He's like, warrant? I forgot what the term he was. It was some BS term, we're doing some community policing. I forgot the exact terming he used, and being yeah, this is a very dangerous neighborhood. You never know, some criminal can walk up and just kick down the door, and he proceeds to kick down the door. They go in, it's oh yeah, the wall's little weak here. It's okay, the wall is kind of hollow back here. It's okay, let's find the weak point. Pulls out his gun, starts shooting, bam, bam, bam. And it's oh, just finding the weak point in the wall. And he's Roger's don't you dare. He's what do you mean? Just don't know what. Rushes forward, busts through the wall, and finds $90 million plus that was kind of stashed away. And then when they were kind of showcasing, when the captain was kind of talking about it and everything, you see Palmer kind of looking towards the direction and everything. You just see the rage burning in her eyes. But yeah, I mean, when it was all said and done, Riggs kind of went above and beyond and ended up locking himself in the trunk of that girl. What's her name? Bambi. And obviously the dude ended up finding him in the back of the trunk and everything. And then, it's she's oh, I don't want to be a part of this. I sell purses and everything. He's a cop and everything. And then he suddenly stands up, puts a bullet in her face. I was oh, poor Bambi. You shouldn't have got caught up with these, you don't mess with cartels. You don't get involved with cartels. Don't do that. That's a big no-no. And he starts proceeding to torture Riggs by dunking his head in water repeatedly, asking him, oh, how much do they know? How many of his operations are compromise. And Riggs being him, it's just like, okay, wait. Is it 10? 42. Wait, I forgot to carry the one, and continues to dunk him and everything. But then, while it's happening, he's seeing Miranda more and more, and then he pulls him up, and it's just like, okay. He's like, go ahead, kill me. Because at that point, Riggs has always had that part of himself that's like, he said it from the very beginning, like, it'd be easy just to kill himself, but he always knew that Miranda would be disappointed in him, but it's just like her constantly popping up in his head, reminding him and everything. It's just like, he got tired and he just wanted to be with her again. And he's telling him, like, just go ahead and kill me. He's like, oh yeah, I could do that. He's like, but what about your partner and his family? The moment he mentioned Roger and threatening his family, it's just like, nah, it was on then. It's like, you can threaten to kill me, that's fine. I've got nothing left to live for in this world. But the moment hearing, like, you threaten, like, the dude threatening his partner, it pissed him off, and so he ended up fighting back and breaking free and everything. Chased him down the alleyway, and the guy was like, "Okay, I'll give you what you want." He's like, but they let you see a Miranda, and they kind of see a look on Rick's face, and he's like, "Yeah, you kept saying her name and stuff like that." It's like, and it's like, there's a part of you, like, part of me was actually halfway expecting him to get super pissed. It's like, don't you dare say her name, and that was going to make him fight back. But it made him kind of want to submit even more. He's like, kill me. But luckily, everyone else kind of showed up. Palmer and Roger showed up in time. Almost, interestingly enough, almost running over Riggs. And I was actually kind of surprised about that. You see his hand tapping on it, and they're like, can you back up? I was like, what do you mean? Like, back up for what? I was like, wait, she didn't run you over or anything. It's like that. I mean, technically she did. I mean, really, I don't consider it completely running you over until the tire hits you. I mean, the tire was still a little away from him, but still, that was pretty close. If they had not stopped when they did, he'd have a squished head right now. So, but kind of getting back to the point, bringing it back to what the doc said, the whole point of, there is no like healing from what's happened. There's no getting over it. There's no moving past it. All you can do is lighten your heart a little bit, make it a little easier by surrounding yourself with people you care about. In his case, Roger, who spent the entire episode trying to enjoy his time because Trish is away with the kids, scouting out colleges and whatnot for their daughter and everything. So he's there with the youngest, bringing the youngest to the crime scene, trying to enjoy his poker game that he had set up and everything, but everything kind of falls through. And then also, for him, it's kind of like a binging moment of just kind of like, I forgot the term he actually used, but it's like basically to eat and do whatever he wants to before Trish gets back. It's kind of like, eat all the steak he wants to because it's very unhealthy for him, especially considering his condition and whatnot, but gets to kind of go a little wild, but he can't really, it kind of fell through just because everything else kind of fell through. So it wasn't really as much of a kickback and relaxing type of thing. Except for at the end, obviously, he's there drinking with Riggs. And Riggs ends up bringing a dog that popped up in the beginning of the episode that was pissing all over his place to proceed to piss all over Roger's place. So I'm wondering, is that dog going to be a staple? Is that going to be kind of Riggs' new thing, like taking that dog in? Also, what about Agent Palmer? Because, her and Martin did kind of click because she is kind of like, she's like, she hasn't been through his experience, but she knows kind of her own experience because like she went through a divorce for her husband, and it's like she kind of dives herself into her job. It's her way of kind of dealing with it. So, tries to make good, tries to take that energy and kind of put it towards something good, like catching bad guys. So I'd very much like to see if we could get her to kind of pop up in more episodes. Because, like I said, especially because it's like, there's something there between her and Riggs. I mean, but who knows what that really could mean going forward. I mean, Miranda's still on his mind and everything. I mean, I'm not saying like he should be quick to jump off the boat and just be like, oh yeah, go back and, it's not going to be easy like that. And I don't think Palmer was necessarily setting it up for that. I think she's like, hey, I can be there for you. So even if it's in a sense of being like, hey, just a friend, but I mean, maybe it's like one step closer. I mean, Roger and his family was already one large step, and maybe Palmer can be another one. So, and once again, a little side note to kind of end this off on. Have they been doing that the entire time? I've never noticed that because I tend to like record these on like the DVR, this and Blindspot. So I was wondering, like, because I started like last episode I saw it, and I saw it this episode, the whole like Surface, the Microsoft Surface commercials that are kind of integrated into it. It's like Is that new, or have they been doing that before? Because I typically kind of skip through the commercials depending on whether I'm typing up notes in between the commercials and whatnot, or if I get, take the time to do other stuff too. It's just, that just kind of popped up in my mind or not. So it's just kind of interesting because I can't help but notice it. I mean, this time it happened much earlier in the episode, didn't it? Because last episode it happened kind of in the middle because the Emmy dude is kind of like setting up a dating profile and everything. He's trying to take a picture, but he notices one of the drawers in the morgue is kind of open. He's like, that's not going to be the best to kind of attract attention from the lady. So it's just very interesting. I love that. And like I said, it's not like a big part of the episode. It's just something that was kind of cut out of it that they kind of just turned into a commercial. Just kind of like something not too significant that couldn't just be kind of added on as just, it's kind of a little bit of an added on scene that really doesn't make that big of a difference. It's just kind of like, oh, this is some stuff he kind of figured out, some stuff he might have found, that kind of gets cut out of the episode anyway, so it's like, why not turn it into a commercial? But that's not here nor there. It's something interesting. I just couldn't help but note. And finally, moving on to this week's episode of Blindspot, a really, really good episode. I knew it was a trap from the beginning when it came to Jane. Like, she got the phone. Like, the moment they took her there and everything, it's like, because I was thinking something was extra weird because I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people here. I was like, okay, I thought they were going to be by themselves or something. He's going like, this is something we've got to handle our own, kind of him really testing her loyalty and everything. And I'm like, okay, something's really not right here. It's like, there's full-blown soldiers everywhere. It's like, okay, this is real. And then it's like, oh yeah, Shepard's a part of this too. I'm like, Shepard wants to see. I was like, dude, oh my goodness. It's like, Shepard's in on it, because I was not expecting Roman to actually tell her. It's his sister and everything. I was so sure he would have tried to handle this on his own to kind of bring her back into the fold because he cares about her and whatnot. But it's like, and I was like, no, he actually told Shepard. And it's like, she's bringing it. She's like, she got the phone and she's taking all these pictures of what's going on. I'm like, dude, this is so obviously a trap because it's like they're giving you such unfeathered access. So obviously this is a trap because it's kind of like, when have they ever really left you alone 100% to like, because they went out of the way to make sure that you knew exactly where everything was. Obviously she played it off well, being like, oh yeah, I'm like, this is just covered up. And it's like, oh, I got tired of you not incorporating me into this operation. So she's basically thinking, she ends up reporting it to the FBI, thinking it's like, oh, they're going to attack the power grid. They're making their move. They have 12 hours, making it seem like, oh, after this, Jane won't be going back to the FBI because this be the final stages of their plan and whatnot. And then like Roman's offering her a piece of candy and she ends up taking it and it was drugged and fell right into the trap. What I love the most is finding out it's like, oh, it wasn't just about what the message we got from the mole, which, yeah, we have a mole in the FBI you didn't know about. You really thought we only had one mole? It's like, no, we had to make sure there were multiple people that could keep an eye on you. You thought Oscar was your only handler? Nope. And then it turns out, like, Shepard has been suspicious of Jane since the very beginning for one particular reason. Never believed a Cade story because of one slip up. She spelled Marcos wrong. It was like such an insignificant thing that was just kind of like to take it off her trail that she was the one that killed Oscar. It came back to bite her in the ass because of that one slip up. Shepard was very against her, but it's like Shepard wanted to kind of just kill her a long time ago, before be done with this. But Roman kind of convinced her, it's like, no, Roman could shift her alliance, but now, it's like because of their mole, who is, in fact, Borden. I didn't want it to be him. I really, 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 really didn't want it to be him, but I knew it couldn't be anyone else. Like I said, I knew it couldn't be any background character. Definitely didn't think it was Tasha or Reed or anything like that. So I was like, it's Borden, isn't it? I had my suspicions, and it turned out to be true. Especially at the beginning of the episode where he's kind of like, oh, I never thought I'd be happy again like this. I'm like, okay, this is suspicious as hell. And it's like, oh, yeah, yep, he's officially the mole. But it doesn't stop there because we end up finding out more about his past in this episode. He was there in 2013 during the Orion operation to wipe out Jane and her team. His wife was Chris, the lady that saved Jane, that she remembered because she had Patterson look into it with the ring and everything. And it's just like, that's how he got involved in all this. Because initially Chris wasn't willing to turn her over because it's like not until we get the story from her. Jane wanted to try and get away as soon as possible, but they wouldn't. I mean, Chris wouldn't. So she spent time with them, recovering and everything, and even getting to the point that Chris and you see them hanging out, kind of having fun, laughing, eating together. Kind of Borden kind of helping her with her rehabilitation. They became friends and everything. Soldiers started looking for her, and she was willing to. But the moment soldiers popped up to kind of look for her, she was like, "I gotta go." It's like because from the very beginning she didn't want to put them in danger. But then it happens. Like basically, the town or village they were in kind of gets bombarded by like U.S. bombs and stuff like that from drone strikes and stuff. And Chris was at the hospital that kind of got hit. So this is kind of the truth that Shepard was kind of trying to keep away from her. Like the fact of the matter is, what I'm wondering is, what if that wasn't necessarily the government itself? Maybe that was actually Shepard and her people, because they were like, yeah, because remember she lied to Remy about it. That was kind of the whole thing. The fact is that she lied to Remy and because she told that to Roman, she's like, yeah, I had to lie to her about the fact is that the doctor died by insurgents or whatever, bad guys, and it's like they came to rescue her. But it seems like that's not the case from what we're seeing from Borden's perspective. Jane, or rather Remy, was kind of like, she told him the truth. It's like her government turned against her. She was, obviously did some operations off book that, most people frown upon, but she thought she was doing it for the sake of her country. Things, that more often than not, stuff that needed to be done would have to go through a lot of red tape to get done. And it's like their reward for doing their job for the country was to be killed. And so it's like they're trying to shut everyone up. She's like, my country is broken. It's lost its damn mind. And it's like, my family, we're going to help kind of, rebuild it. And it's like, help me, stand with me. And that's how Borden kind of get caught up in this. The question is Chris really dead? Or is it this entire time Borden and Jane have thought she's been dead? I mean, in Borden's case, maybe thought she was dead this entire time, but it's like, no. She could actually be alive. Maybe even Sandstorm has her. It's a question to me. But I mean, what really thought was twisted in this situation was the fact is that there were so many calculated steps in this. One, pulling Kirk away from the team by making it seem like Allie was in a car accident and he was getting a call from her new boyfriend, Connor. He goes there and is like, oh, wait, what? Connor, wait, there's no Allie here. Okay, something's not right here. Calls Connor up. It's like, yeah, she's here. She's fine. And he pieces together. It's, so good. Because basically the entire FBI team went to a certain spot and they were trapped. The place blew up because the whole thing was, set up. The point was to kill them in front of Jane because it's like the team, this kind of new family of yours, and try to kill them and kind of strip them away from. That's why they didn't kill her yet. It's like, I want you to see your family die. And it's like, what about Kurt? It's like, oh, we have something special planned for him. Are they willing to kill Kirk is the question, because it seems like Sandstorm has had their eyes on him the entire time, because that's been, Kirk's big question is they've had their eyes on him since like he was in military school or whatever. So it's kind of like, okay, what's up with that? Why is he so special to them? It's not just because they've had their eye on Kirk even before the whole Jane situation of having Jane pretend to be Taylor. Even before then, they had their eyes on him, and they felt like he was because really this whole operation is Jane's whole, like Sandstorm is her baby. She's the one that kind of ran this. I mean, really Shepard's kind of running it now. So, but it was probably like a joint thing where it's like Raimi came up with the idea and everything. And then, Shepard's helping her implement it and whatnot. Because for Shepard, she's like, oh man, I lost one of my children. And so she's like, okay, my decision is, okay, Roman, you have to kill Jane. And he's like, wait, what? Because another thing too is the fact is, anytime it came to Jane, he never really referred to her by name. I don't think there were really many occasions where it never came up. But this one time he actually did refer to her by name, and he called her Jane. Because I can't think of a moment so far where he's just outright called her Remy, has he? He's like, yeah, you're my sister and whatnot. But it's like he never actually called her by her name. I guess that was always a part of him knowing that technically this wasn't his sister, so he didn't want to call her by her name. But this time he just fully acknowledges, you're no longer my sister, you're Jane. And so, but the whole situation is just like, okay, kill your sister. And he's like, wait, what? She's like, I've already lost one child. I won't lose another one. She's like, your sister, she still has a hold on you, and this is no longer your sister, so you need to put her down before she can be used as a weapon against you. It's like, the fact is, we're the ones that wiped her memories. This is all our fault. This happened to her because of us. And she's like, yeah, I know it happened, but it still happened. So she's a problem. Need to take care of her. So Roman's kind of about to pull the trigger on her, but he switches it over to Shepard and pulls the trigger, and obviously there's no bullets. I figured as much, that the whole thing was going to be a test. And she's like, I guess I've lost you both. End up in a three-way fight. Well, Roman and Jane versus Shepard. They're going at it and everything, and they fight her off a little bit, but then, Roman gets a shot on her. She ended up getting shot on. I mean, they're both wounded and everything. And then it's kind of like, okay. And like Roman's got the gun to her, and he's like, Shepard's pleading. She's like, please don't kill me. She's like, no, that if you kill me, you'll be killing the only person left that loves you. And then they were able to fortunately get away and everything, but Roman's kind of like, no, I'm accepted. I would rather die. Like, she's like, oh, you can go to the FBI. She's like, I'd rather die than go to the FBI. Because the reason is because Roman has never been 100% set on this. He was always brainwashed by Shepard. It's like she was like their mom. Like, as he said it before, she's more like the reason why they call her Shepard, and there's a reason why they call her Shepard and never mom, because she was never really a mom to them. It's like, because as you can see, like, because a mother wouldn't be so quick to be like, yeah, I would have killed you weeks ago if it wasn't for Roman. A mother wouldn't be like that. She only wanted to give Jane a chance because of Roman. If it wasn't for Roman intervention, she would have killed Jane a long time ago because she had believed the whole Cade story. And but it's like, she's like, okay, I guess there's only one option. It's like, no matter what happens, you're still my brother. And it's like, because I'm different now. I'm a different person now. There was a benefit to me losing my memory. It helped me become a different person and everything. And he's like, and she's like, it'll do the same for you. Turns around and jabs the needle in his neck. It's like, what? You're wiping his memories too? Did not see that coming. I was like, okay, I figured you're going to bring him into the FBI, but was not expecting her to wipe his memories. I was like, that's so good. Because this, for one, gives her an opportunity to kind of restart and kind of learn him from scratch, kind of get to know him, kind of help him. Because it helped her a lot, because as Remy, she did a lot of things. She killed a lot of people. This whole Sandstorm thing, it's her baby. So it's kind of like, she kind of got a fresh start. She wanted to give her brother one too. He deserved one, because they're this way because they had such a messed up childhood, and they had a mother like Shepard raising them. So it's kind of like, of course they're going to turn out the way they did. So it's kind of like, because that's kind of the thing this season has kind of really taught you. Like, Jane spent so much time in season 1 trying to figure out who she was, and now in season 2 she do give anything to forget who she really is, who she forget anything about Remy, because she doesn't want to be that person anymore. She just wants to be Jane. She said it, or like, she brought it up early this season. She wishes she could go back to the time when she thought she was Taylor. So it's just crazy. Then there was the whole situation with the building and everything. Luckily, granted, a lot of FBI agents died, but Tasha came out of it a lot. I was super scared. I was like, oh God, like the moment they're pulling Reed out and everything, I was like, okay, I get the feeling he's going to be okay, which he turned out to be, but I'll get to that in a second. But it's like, oh, Nas, some of that stuff is coming back down. Like, oh, she's not going to make it. They're going to screw us up. It's like, no, Kirk got her. It's like, Kirk got her out. Good. Yes. The building exploded, but everyone got out. I was like, oh, that's so good. And also, Reed kind of reveals something too. Like the moment he's like, I gotta tell Tasha something, and he ends up telling her, he's like, God, I love you. It's like, I was like, oh, that's a little heartwarming and everything. I was like, I knew it was more than friendship and everything, which I don't know, maybe he meant that in a loving like family or partner type of way, love, maybe. I don't know, maybe there's not like an effect, like a like loving love type of thing. Maybe it's just kind of like between, hey, we're partners, we got each other's back, we're best friends type of love. Because Reed had said something I really appreciate in this episode. He's like, because Nas was kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm the reason why this is all happening to you. And he's like, get over yourself. He's like, I'm here, like, I was set on this path ever since we pulled Jane out. It's ever since Jane came out that bag. Like, this has kind of been my life and everything. I've been part of this team, kind of like, yo, we're a team. We stick together. We die together. We die to protect each other. We're there for each other. It's like, that's what a team's for. So it's like, he wouldn't be anywhere else but where he is right now. But we also got the truth from him, which I called it. My thought was like Freddie was still there, but no, Freddie had ran away. Like with everything, I knew Reed was still lying about that. But the fact is, he stood over Jones' body while Jones was bleeding out. Freddie had already stabbed him and left, but Jones was asking for help and he sat there and bled. So to a certain degree, you could argue Reed did kill him by not doing anything. But, Tasha doesn't really say anything. She kind of just like, it's okay, it's okay. He's like, he's sorry that he lied to her and everything. So it does make you wonder where things will go in that regard. Oh, there's just so much. And then the final note, which they lead the episode off, is like, oh, Patterson tracks down Borden. It's like, oh, where have you been this entire... Sees the ring. It's like, where'd you get that? Sees the gun in his back, and it goes... It all clicks. You're an insider. You've been working with Sandstorm, and she pieces it all together. It kind of turns into a gunfight. She pulls a gun on him and everything. He's like, I didn't want it to turn out this way. She's like, I bet you didn't. Start shooting at each other. Then they go downstairs. It's like, oh, trust me, Patterson, I never want to hurt you. I never want, and they go at it and stuff like that. And it's just like, I'm sure Patterson actually made doing his job a little harder because I don't think he was actually ever, because I think he legitimately meant what he said at the beginning of the episode, how he never thought he could be happy again, because it's like after he lost Chris and everything, he just thought there was no point to kind of, it's just sad, man, that it turned out like that. I mean, we had the final shot of the episode being literally a shot. They're fighting back and forth, and bam, the gun goes off, and it's like we switch back and forth between their faces, and episode ends because it's like, who got shot? Literally, the title card is like, oh, who will survive? And that's it, because there won't be any more Blindspot until January 4th, which I'm like, I kind of halfway expected it because Chicago PD kind of had its kind of fall finale. So I was like, I felt like it was probably right around the corner. I was expecting maybe another episode or two might be it, but it's like, I kind of figured it was pretty soon. Like, because like I said, it's around that time a lot of stuff is winding down because of their winter finales and stuff like fall/winter finales, whatever you want to call it. So, but so good. I'm so curious to see where everything goes, dude. Like, the whole Reed and Tasha thing, the whole Roman situation, also finding out who got shot between Borden and Patterson. My money's on it being Patterson, and being the point where like Borden's kind of like caught between, like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be doing this, but I like you and everything, I care about you and everything, so I gotta try and keep you alive because I don't want you to die type of thing. But easily could be Borden, where it's kind of like Patterson tries to keep him alive because of the same reason. I'm like, okay, I need to keep you alive also, not only because I like you, but also because it's like, I need to bring you in so you can be debriefed about this whole situation. So, super excited. I'm sad I have to wait, but at the same time, it's such a good episode, and I just cannot wait to see more. Like I said, it's sad I have to wait a while, but I'm sure it's going to be well worth it. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.